All right, good evening, family. Thank you for being here. Good evening, good evening, good evening. Uh, there's Akira trying to make himself known. I'm David Collins. Uh, we're really in my house, so you may hear from my dogs as we do this podcast episode. But no, this is Broken for This. It's the channel that is dedicated to mental health awareness, helping you to see if you're like me and you've been through some challenging things in your life. I want you to see that even if you've ever felt broken, maybe you feel broken right now. Um, Trauma has a way of making us feel like we're fatally flawed, like it's, uh oh. Ashley said she is not able to hear me. Oh no. Give me just a second. I'll fix that. Hmm. I don't know what that's about. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Hello, hello. Check one, two. Check one, two. How's the audio? Check one, two. What? How's that? Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Check one, two. Check one, two. Check one, two. How's the audio? Can't hear me? Oh man. I don't know what that's about. Let me see something. I have the sound bar all the way up. Like you're whispering. Give me just a second, y'all. Let me come back. I'll be right back. Right back. Okay, how's that? Can you hear me now, Ash? Is that any better? Check one, two. How's the audio? Check one, two. Check one, two. No? Hmm. I don't know. What's it sound like? Can you hear me? Hey, sorry guys, we're having some audio issues. Is it okay now? Okay. Yeah, I don't know, man. That's technology for you. Computers doing computer things. Um, but we'll get there. We'll get there. So I guess you probably didn't hear me in the beginning. I'm David Collins. This is the Broken for this channel. It's the podcast where we give you a platform to talk about mental health issues and talk about some of the things that we tend to shy away from. Part of the reason is that when you've been through something difficult in your life, it has a tendency of making you feel like there's something wrong with you. It can make you feel like you're fatally flawed, like you're like you'll never be the person that you were. And I would just argue, and I would say that my experience is that those difficult circumstances have actually equipped you. And if you can reframe those and look at them and see how they have made you stronger, so that you'd be able to be there to help somebody else, maybe somebody who's just like you. So that's what Broken for This is all about. On this channel, we do a couple of things. One, I interview friends and associates, people who have compelling stories about overcoming some difficult things in their lives. And then we also, I've got a series of my own kind of personal growth and my own mental health journey that I like to share. So that's what we're doing tonight. It's a series. I've been in therapy for years now, working through some of that old stuff, and I'm coming to some healthy conclusions and finding some strength. So I wanted to share that with you. The way that I'm sharing my story, the method that I've chosen, is in letters, and it's specifically in letters written to my father, my absentee biological father. So we're on the fifth letter in that series now, and this is a challenging one, guys. I read it to a couple of people to kind of get myself ready to read it to you, and I really hope that it'll be helpful, beneficial to you. But I know that, especially this letter, this is definitely going to be hitting home for an audience of one. So I'm good. If I see that I know we started off kind of rocky, and I don't see anyone in the chat right now. But if anyone does come in and you have comments, I will come to them once I'm finished reading the letter, and I will engage with you as best I can. There's Momo, mad that somebody's walking. Get down. Let me see if I can get him together before I start reading. All right, I had to put on my grown man voice for Momo. So I think we're okay. So I'll go ahead and go to this letter. As you can see in the title, it's called Uncle Ed. And we'll jump right into it. This one is dated 1996, so I'm right around 13 years old as this one is set. And I'll say this before I read it. I'm really grateful for this format that I've chosen, that I feel God has led me to help you to be able to grow and to heal and to learn. And I want to just say that even as I wrote this, I feel better than this letter sounds. So I don't want it to be like, oh, poor, pitiful me, I'm still stuck in this place. But I've grown since writing this, but it's still real. All right, let's go. Let's go. And yeah, that's the dogs. They just love to show out, man. When I'm in this mode, they love to show out. So let's see if we can get them to chill. And here we go, 1996, Uncle Ed. Dad, as the years went by, your calls came less frequently until they stopped altogether. School changes, organized sports, speeches at church, and a myriad of other childhood experiences were a welcome distraction from thinking about you. We also connected with some of your nieces and your nephews. They told us so many stories about their memories with your family. It was wonderful to know so many things about the memories, to hear so many stories. We even got to go visit the farm where you grew up. We only got there a few times. So talking with your other family members made us feel a whole lot more connected to that side of the family. They were so much bigger than our family. My mom only has 3 siblings, but you had 10. And we barely keep up with everyone. It meant the world to me to have the love and acceptance of your family. I asked about you sometimes, and there was a treasure trove of information about you. Yet, turns out you were a standout at everything you tried. You were a star athlete in high school and a scholar. You had an infectious laugh and oozed with charisma. I found out that you were even chosen as governor of Texas for a day, the first black student to be chosen for that honor. And when it came time for college, you could go about anywhere you wanted, and you chose Rice University, who offered you an academic and football scholarship. After school, you were able to get drafted to the New York Jets as a wide receiver. The consensus was things started to change a bit right around that point. You had a temper that surfaced suddenly, and your family started to worry about your state of mind. Your sisters and brothers seemed to be relieved when you and mom met. They thought that family life might be just what the doctor ordered for you and that shifting temper. But we both know how that worked out. That's when you started to drink heavily, and the people closest to you started to worry about what might happen if your rage turned on them. Finally, there was some semblance of an explanation for your absence. It wasn't a great one, but at least it was something. You'd been doing really well, and then all of a sudden, your behavior changed. There was some substance abuse. It was something I could grasp. Also, after you and mom split up, people got the idea that you felt a bit betrayed that your family members stayed so close to us, like they'd chosen us over you. I was busy enjoying your family, but where did that leave you? I marveled at how someone who had ascended to the heights you had could fall so quickly. I did my best to put myself in your shoes. It felt like perilous territory, but it made it harder to be mad at you. I pitied you because I couldn't imagine life away from my family. I mean, how did you survive that kind of isolation? I got my answer unexpectedly one day when I was talking to one of our cousins. We lived in Georgia and she lived just a state away in Florida. So we were catching up on what was going on in our lives and what we'd been up to. She casually mentioned that she had been at a barbecue with Uncle Ed. Uncle Ed? Certainly there was some mistake. Uncle Ed? I thought you were a pariah. Like you were an outcast from the family, like you were a recluse. You were the troll under the bridge. You were barbecuing with other family members? My cousins who were my age? I'd spent years wishing you'd come out of the dark and show me the love I always wanted. But I thought the problem was that you were incapable of loving yourself or anyone else. All of that came crashing down when I realized that some of your family knew you quite well. I felt a lump in my throat that I know my cousin didn't hear. How could she? But I pressed forward and asked her to clarify. Uncle Ed, do you mean my dad? She had no idea the turmoil that I was experiencing, so she just talked freely about how you were a lot of fun to be around when you weren't drunk. She said you told the greatest jokes and made the best barbecue ribs she'd ever had. I was absolutely heartbroken, and I had no idea how to process it. I've been praying for you. Dad, I made excuses for you. I've been waiting for you. You weren't drowning in isolation. You just weren't talking to your kids. It's not that I wanted you to suffer, I don't think. But I was furious that you had the nerve to be happy without me. How could you? If you had the capacity to be loving, that meant you were consciously excluding me. But why would a father do that to his son? As children tend to do when they can't understand complex emotional situations, cause and effect, I did what most children would do, and I blamed myself. I settled on the conclusion that there was something wrong with me. In our short and sporadic interactions, I figured that I must have shown you enough of my faults, my flaws, my failings to make you want nothing to do with me. I started to pick myself apart, trying to see what glaring issue was missing. But I didn't know what it was. That just made it worse. Did everybody see it? Was everybody thinking the same thing? Like I was unlovable? My self-confidence nosedived then, and I didn't know how to express that to anyone. Right around that time, my voice changed. I went from sounding like my mom to sounding just like you. That's what everybody said anyway. I would talk to your family or mom even, and they would say that I really sounded just like you. The more I grew, the more they told me how much I looked like you too, how I reminded them of you. While I knew they meant it well, all I heard was that I was turning into you. Despite my best efforts, I was somehow growing into the man who almost killed me and mom. I was turning into the man whose tremendous successes paled in comparison to his swift and sudden failures. I was on course to become the person who abandoned me. I was becoming you, and there was nothing I could do about it. When I forgot to do my homework at school, I wondered if I was one day away from flunking out. When I found myself getting angry, I worried that it would turn into a blind and violent rage, and I wouldn't even know the difference until it was over. I became my own worst enemy. I picked apart everything I did. I second-guessed every action, every word, every expression. And suddenly it felt like everything I did was leading to me ending up a train wreck, a lost cause. My grades started to slip, and I was having a hard time focusing on much of anything, much less my studies. My teachers all seemed frustrated with me around this time, and probably going forward. All of my progress reports and report cards had some comment that read something like, even though David is clearly smart enough to do the work, he doesn't apply himself. I wanted to scream every time I read those words. I was applying myself. I just couldn't focus. If I could do better, I would do better. Not only did I develop a paralyzing fear of becoming you, I started to even fear becoming successful. Success just started to feel like a part of the equation. How successful were you before everything crashed? When people complimented me, I worried about whether they meant it. Were they just saying nice things to make me feel better? I shied away from people a bit, fearing they would find out that I was on the verge of collapse mentally. I felt like a fraud waiting to be found out. Didn't have a name for it then, but these days I know that that's called imposter syndrome. Regardless of the positive feedback I'd get at various points in my life, it all felt temporary, or worse yet, manufactured. People saw what I really was, a failure, and they were just trying to lift me up before I fell apart. Even though much of my insecurity stemmed from my relationship or the lack of relationship with you, I gotta admit these feelings weren't your fault. I had questions that I couldn't answer, so I blamed myself. I wish I'd recognized it then, but those wheels were already in motion. I had so much anger and pain burning inside me. And even if you couldn't, somebody could have helped me. Well, it could have helped me if I'd only reached out. It was like I was stuck in a prison of my own design. I wanted to talk to people, but I was afraid. I was afraid that somebody would reject me in the way that I rejected myself. As much as it tore me apart, holding in those feelings felt better than opening up and taking the chance that the darkest thoughts I had about myself were the truth. If closing myself meant my relationships would suffer, that's just how it had to be. This is the first time I remember feeling what I now recognize as depression. Waves and waves of crushing hopelessness and sadness. Was that what it was like for you, Dad? As I write this, I wonder if that's what happened to you. Did you start feeling depressed? Did you turn away the people you love the most because of a battle going on inside of you? I wanted answers from you most of all. But everything was starting to feel like so much effort. I invested so much energy into pasting on a smile on my face, so no one asked me what was wrong. I didn't have anything left to reach out for help or think much deeper about it. I was constantly exhausted. As much as I tried to relate to you, the words Uncle Ed played in my head over and over and over. You were the fun uncle and the absentee father. None of this made sense. So I just fought to keep my head above water emotionally. In spite of how bad it felt, I kept pushing. I couldn't let this darkness consume me like it did you. Thinking of you felt like peering into my own future. And even if I couldn't avoid my inevitable fall from grace, I figured the least I could do was try to delay it. For once, I wanted to know you, but not because it would make me complete, because I was hoping that maybe I could learn from you what not to do. I was obsessed with saving my own life before I ruined it. And at 13 years of age, I lacked the emotional maturity to recognize I was just setting the stage for a horrible self-fulfilling prophecy. Suddenly, I didn't feel so ready to meet you and face my future self. But little did I know, soon we were about to talk again. Just not under the kind of circumstances that I'd hoped for. Your son, David. Man, I feel bad for that kid. As I look back on that time in my life, I've had a deep compassion for that poor young man trying to make sense of himself. I'll say first off that it feels good to read that and no longer believe those words. y'all. Um, it feels really good to read that and know that I have come through that kind of um, that kind of self-deprecating, self-sabotaging hatred of me, and that paralyzing fear of becoming, this tremendous failure. And we talked about it in the episodes leading up to this. That 2020 hindsight is a really valuable way to do some reparenting, and I find myself with a whole lot of kind things that I can say to me. I my therapist was asking me, why didn't I talk more? Why didn't I, speak to more people about what was going on in my mind? And I touched on it briefly as I was writing this letter, but the truth is, at 13 years old, 12, 13, whatever, it's really difficult when you're used to having these very grown emotions, um, when you're worrying to the point, anxiety and depression will grow you up real fast. It just will. And I found that people would ask me what was wrong. People would ask me, you know, why I was looking sad. And there were times when I would just straight up talk about it. I would say, oh, my dad, and and they didn't have the backstory, so I'd start rattling off what happened. My dad, you know, nearly beat my mom and me to death when she was pregnant with me, and now, he's trying to come into my life, but he's absentee, and it's just, I don't really know how that's supposed to make me feel, and I can't concentrate on anything. I'm scared. I'm gonna, like, you imagine, 12-year-old David telling this to another 12-year-old, and understandably, I got a lot of like shocked expressions from my peers. And, instead of seeing that as I don't know how I could have received it, but the way that I saw it was that uh, I needed to close myself off, that my emotions were too much to handle. That wasn't true either. I didn't run that by anybody, but that was the conclusion that I came to on my own. So I started learning pretty quickly that I needed to be a better, need to be on guard a little more so that people didn't ask me those kind of questions. So that meant that I needed to learn how to laugh stuff off. That I needed to uh, that I needed to find a way to keep from having that conversation. So that every time a teacher would ask me, I wasn't always talking about that I was feeling sad and I didn't know why, and I didn't, and I had these irrational, you know, things going on in my mind. I just didn't want to talk about it anymore. It was enough to be feeling it. And this is in the 90s, you know what I'm saying? Uh, Gosh, that's a long time ago. 30 years ago, people weren't talking about depression and anxiety like that then. If you were growing up in this, if you're 10 years younger than me or more, you may not be able to have a concept for this, but there was a time when if you talked about being depressed or being sad or being anxious, you were about to get bullied or you get something to get you depressed about. I remember, so if you start talking about that you were going to go see a therapist or there was something wrong or you were sad, people were ready to call you crazy, mental, head case, all kind of stuff. Especially as a male, as a young man and a black man at that, man, real men don't cry. Tighten up. That was the culture that I grew up in. So instead of, telegraphing my weakness, I painted on strength, and I pretended, and I got real good at it, which made it so that people didn't ask me a lot of things. But it also meant that I wasn't getting I wasn't getting anybody else's opinion about me. And since the conclusion that I had come to was that, my dad, he's not incapable of loving people. He's just unwilling to love me. I didn't know what to do with that other than to blame me, And I don't feel, like I said, I think I alluded to it in the letter. I don't think my cousin was saying that I have any reason other than that's what she did that day. I look back and I don't think that I just, even in that situation, that was a time that I could have probably talked to my mom or talked to somebody. But again, I'd had enough feedback that my feelings were, you know, they were like radioactive. People didn't want to hear all that. Or people, or worse, I would have, if I said something like that to a teacher or an adult, uh, they'd say stuff like, "Oh, you don't have any problems. You don't know nothing about that. Wait till you're not even grown." It's just something that the grown folks tend to do to young people when they hear that young people are struggling. Again, I think that's a more cultural thing. And my wife is a high school teacher now, and that's not the way she would respond to somebody who came at her. It's taken a lot of hardship, a lot of hurt, a lot of difficulty, and a lot of advances in mental health sciences, so that we could start hamstringing our kids this way. So I think in some ways I was a product of my time, and in others I was like I said in the letter, a prison of my own design. That I wasn't helping myself either. Um, as it relates to my dad, I look back on him now as I did for the last few years of his life, um, with a sense of sadness. Um, Now I don't have, I'm not a father. I don't have any natural children, but I am a mentor. I am a leader. I am a pastor, and I have a lot of people who, over the years, have looked up to me, people who I've been there for, and I can only imagine the agony someone has to be in to cut off somebody who wants nothing more than to know them. I knew that his bad, I know now, and I think I had a little bit of a hint then that whatever it was significant. Um, like I said, I know about, I know a lot more about my dad now than I did then. I know that he himself was dealing with depression. Imagine that. He himself had gone through that in the '60s, the '50s and '60s, '70s, feeling that, and his parents and his mentors and coaches were way meaner about mental health than mine were, I'm sure. Again, it's just difficult. I've heard people say, there's always people who are being diagnosed with this and diagnosed with that these days, and that we're just weaker. Y'all, that's just nonsense. The only thing that we've gotten better at in general, I won't say that, but I would say in general, what we've gotten better at is recognizing what's going on with somebody. And we've got a better method to treat people. It's not weakness because you have a diagnosis like depression or anxiety or PTSD, 3 for 3 over here. Um, it just tells you how your brain, how your thought processes have been impacted, and gives you a roadmap. I think back to how many times my dad would have benefited from somebody who uh, who saw him as a patient and not a problem. But again, those are those conversations that never we never really got to have, until much, much later in life, after both of us were already pretty well worn into the paths we were on. Um, Let me look at this letter and see if there's anything. Bless you, Joe. Thanks for being here, bro. Um, it's taken me a long time to get out of that that kind of stuck place of feeling like I've constantly got to be on guard because the next thing around the corner is my catastrophic failure. Man, and I mean just like the last few years, I've been able to make some strides in that. But as much as I'd like to say, 13 hit like that, high school, everything was cool, man. Things got worse before they got better, y'all. And it's really taken some. It took me, you know, 35, 40 years to convince myself of all this nonsense that I had been working on since I was 13, and younger. And it's taken me some years to relearn some helpful thought patterns. I look back at whether it was school, there were so many times that I would find myself, and I'll talk about it in some other letters as we go on. But I would find myself with just this wordless kind of like weight that was sitting on me. My mind would be spinning all day trying to second and third guess everything that I was doing, trying to keep myself together. And by the time I got home, I was spent. Sometimes I'd have my book bag, I'd go to my room and I'd lay everything out and I would just sit there for hours feeling like I was paralyzed. I just didn't have it. Again, anxiety, depression, stuff I didn't know then. So when I went to school the next day and I didn't have my homework, I'd laugh it off and I'd be like, I didn't feel like it. Oh, I forgot it. My dog ate it, even though we didn't have a dog. It was so I became kind of I fell into the class clown trope a little bit. I told Ashley that I think I really would have frustrated her if I was one of her students. Because I think, from the outsider's perspective, I really did look like a little bit of a lazy jerk. I looked like I was just not taking anything very seriously. That was the mask. It was just that convincing. So yeah, that was a really difficult thing. And I remember lots of times, like I remember getting my first F. Oh, Georgia history, 8th grade, Mr. Christensen's class. I had a 68 on one of my progress reports. I just thought I would die. And I really was like in my mind, like, because like on all these TV shows that we were watching, they always talk about your permanent record, and I was like, there it is, the beginning of the end. Spoiler alert, wasn't that serious. Y'all wouldn't even have known it if I didn't tell you. Nobody even told me that they don't even look at your middle school grades for nothing. What? But for me, it was just that it was confirmation bias. I was looking for a reason to give up, a reason to quit, a reason to fall into to believing the worst things about myself, and a 68 in Georgia history was a good excuse as any. A lot of stuff was going on there. I remember, you know, I talked about it before. My sister was a lot. The way she dealt with things was so much more rational than the way I dealt with stuff, and I looked up to her and envied that she could be so cool about everything. I wish that I could have done that. She had like perfect attendance, perfect grades. She was that kid, and I was the kid getting, you know, B's and the occasional A and some C's if it wasn't a good, you know what I mean, and some F's every now and again. By the time 8th grade rolled around, so it was just more and more just feeling like just that comparison trap. You know what I mean? Still, I really am, and after everything that's happened, there's still some relationships in my dad's family that are strong today, that I treasure. Some folks who have kept me together, who've been there for me in the darkest times, and the other thing I think I realize is that as much as and I think I've said it before, but I'll say it on this one too. I had made it up in my mind that all I needed was my dad and everything would be okay. That wasn't true either. I needed to work some stuff out internally in me, whether he showed up or not. Um, and it was that was a whole lot to put on somebody who wasn't even together himself. Even my cousin, I remember talking about him, and it was like, "What you mean, Uncle Ed makes the best ribs? Your mama let you around him?" Yeah, that gutted me. Um, but now that I realize it, now that I've got some life behind me, I know that wasn't about him sitting back thinking about how terrible I was as a son. It was just that there were some relationships that he was able to sort of hold together. But even then, she said that, yeah, he's a lot of fun to be around unless he's drinking, then he's mean. So, that was a side that I hadn't seen of my dad yet. And it really didn't fit into this kind of like, obviously, my life began, or before my life began, my life was marked by his violent rage. But that hadn't popped up since. It'd been years since that had happened. So that was a reminder from, hearing from my cousin that there was still an anger issue going on there. But even with that, right? Even with that going on, I was still trying to find a way in my mind that we could come back together and be all right. That's the brain of a teenager for you. Um, I'll talk a little bit more as we go forward in subsequent letters about about going to counseling. I did start going to counseling. Um, I did go to a psychiatrist and start taking medicine. Even though it wasn't that cool back then, I had to do what I had to do, y'all, and it was really helpful. Situations got more and more complex, and there's a lot more twists and turns in this story, and the ending is it's something else. But I'm just great as I read over this letter now. I feel sad, but it's like I feel this disconnected sadness almost. Like I feel bad for that young kid. I feel bad for little David. Uh, but I'm grateful that I don't feel like that anymore. I'm grateful that I can live in the moment and that I can stop trying to sabotage my own life, out of the fear that I'm going to think everything is great and then it's all going to fall apart. Y'all, that really is a taxing and overwhelming thing to do. And if you're like me and you found yourself doing that, I want to encourage you to turn around and walk in a better direction than that one. I can't tell you. I tell my church, that New Mount Zion, where I pastor, that um, don't study me. You won't graduate. What I mean by that is, don't use my life as the blueprint to get somewhere you want to go. I am where I am by God's grace and mercy, and by the help of the people who are closest to me. And I'm sharing this with you if you're identifying with any of these thoughts and feelings, um, that you don't have to sit in that place by yourself like I did. Um, one of my favorite episodes of Fresh Prince of Bel Air uh, is where Will Smith's estranged father shows up, Lou. Y'all remember that episode? Man, if you grew up in the 90s watching sitcoms, you know what it is. And Lou was he showed back up and he's making all these promises and they're going to get back together. And then at the end of the episode, and I can watch it right now and I just ugly cry, I'm sure. But Will's all excited. Uncle Phil sees that Lou is trying to slip out the door and not say anything to Will. And while they're having this conversation, Will walks in. He's like, "Daddy-o, where we going?" And he's like, "Hey, some stuff came up and I gotta go do some things and get on the road. Then I'm gonna call you and then we gonna get together." And he's just like, "Oh, yeah, 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 cool, cool, cool." And Will has this really heartfelt, as Lou leaves, his dad leaves, and he's just staring at the door. And Uncle Phil tries to say something to comfort him, but they both know that Lou's not coming back and that phone call's not going to happen. And Will's like, you know what? I don't need him. You know what I'm saying? I've gotten this far without him. I never needed him. And I'm going to keep on not needing him. Da, 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 da. And then he gets really emotional and starts yelling. And he's angry. And after all that anger comes out, he just says, through tears and his face starting to fall apart, how come you don't want me, man? And I have never felt so connected to a character on a TV show than that moment. As I'm sharing this letter, that's what that felt like. And what I know now is that my value as a person, as a son, is non-negotiable. And that I had given my dad way too much say-so as it relates to whether I was good enough. And I had really let the noise of wanting to hear from him, I let that make me just ignore all the other encouragement and love that I was getting from other people. Because it was that one stuck place that was wanting to hear from the absentee father and the fun uncle. I'm talking to you now, grateful that I'm not in that place anymore. But that broken little boy became a broken man, and those things, even if it wasn't conscious, those are things that were bubbling under the surface well into my military career and even after it. Just feeling like, here we go. And if I'm being honest, it was becoming this excuse for when things didn't go well. That I was like, well, if it all falls apart, at least I got the blueprint. But I am grateful. I'm grateful that, for one, I think that the truth is that I don't think that a lot of people knew that that's what was going on behind the smile I pasted on. And maybe that's for the best too. um, but I really do. I'm sharing this for the people who watched that episode of Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, and you felt that. How come you don't want me, man? I just want to tell you that I love you, and there's nothing you can do about it. But that don't mean anything if you don't love you. You'll be arguing with the screen right now. You don't love me. You don't even know me. No, I love you. Care about you. And that I have found so much more peace when I stopped trying. I didn't realize how much energy it takes to keep that kind of negativity playing in your mind all the time. But, when I stopped, when I surrendered all of that, gave that thing to God for real. In Matthew 11:28, Jesus says, "Come to me, all you who labor and are heavy laden, and I'll give you rest." He goes on and says, "Take my burden. I'll take the heavy part. You take the lighter part." And he says, "In me, you'll find rest for your souls." My soul has been weary in this life. But Christ really has lifted my burdens in a way that's given me the extra energy to be able to come and share this kind of transparent testimony with you. And I say it often, and I'll finish and we'll close out with this. I'm sharing this with three people in mind. Obviously, at the front of my mind are the kids like me. And I say kids but I mean the sons and daughters like me, whatever age you are, who watched that Will Smith episode and you felt every word of his monologue. I just want to tell you that your value is non-negotiable. And the fact that one person in your life, even if there's somebody that society says, your daddy, your mama, your whoever, they're supposed to see it, they're just people, man. And the fact that we had somebody prominent in our life, a parent maybe, fumble the ball, doesn't mean we're worthless. I know that now, and I don't even have to know you to know that's true of you too. So, if you're struggling with that and you need somebody to give you some hope and remind you to stop being so mean to yourself, holler at your boy. Reach out to me. Let's talk. Let's encourage each other because I still have some tough days. Shoot, going through all of these, man, it's difficult. But I just want you to know. I want you to, and I mean it. I really want you to internalize the fact that you don't have to be defined by what somebody did or didn't do for you. You get to chart your own path, make your own mistakes, and you don't have to become, you don't have to become anything you don't want to become. To the families of people like me, to the Uncle Phils in those episodes, I would just encourage you to just be loving and affirming to a kid who has gone through some difficult mental challenges. And then I would just encourage you to ask a few extra questions. And I know this isn't as much of a thing as it was when I was growing up, but I'll still say it. Take your kids' feelings seriously. It's real easy to say, man, I got a mortgage and car payments and a job and a blah, 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 and you don't know what depressed means. But youth suicide is on the rise in this country. And whenever it happens, everybody goes, oh my gosh, I just can't believe it. And I think that we've got to be diligent in knowing that when a young person goes through a traumatic event, their life is all they know. They don't know your grown folk problems. All they know is their own. And I would just encourage you not to minimize when someone comes to you and says, I'm sad. Someone says, I can't concentrate. Someone says, I'm scared that something bad's going to happen to me. I don't want to live. I don't want to, whatever it is. Especially if there's some young person in your life who's talking about having grown folks' emotions, press pause, stop everything, and have that conversation. I don't know if that would have worked for me. Like I said, I had a real good mask on, but again, I'm just looking at some of the things that I think would have been beneficial for me. And if you're surrounded by somebody, if you're around someone who has those kind of issues, don't be afraid to have the conversation. Talking about stuff doesn't make it worse. It makes it better. That's why therapy is a thing. That's why counseling is a thing. So have the difficult conversation. Don't talk yourself out of it. It's important. Do it. And then last, not least, to the parents who are like my dad. Don't underestimate the power, the healing ability of I'm sorry. As adults, we sometimes will sometimes rehearse things in our heads, and you'll be thinking, well, my kids I can't get along with my ex, or it's been too long. We can never be a family again. Whatever it is, I would just encourage you not to give up on you, not to give up on that relationship with your children, and to use that as a motivator to get yourself together. as bad as things were um, between me, um, between me and my dad, and the way things ended so poorly, sadly, I would much more, even when I found out that he had killed himself, I would much rather have taken a phone call from him than to have had to read his eulogy. And I'm just saying that to you if you're a parent who's excused yourself from your children's lives. Um, don't wait until it's too late. Do your work first, but don't miss out on that opportunity. You'll be sitting there thinking for the rest of your life how things could have been. I know that not every story's got the hallmark ending. Not every time, Sugar Avery comes in the church and sees maybe God's trying to tell you something. But you can have a different ending to this thing if you work at it. You don't have to have the same ending that my story does. So that's broken for this, guys. Again, we exist to help you to pick up the pieces and show you how you're not broken, you're not fatally flawed, you're not a lost cause. But what you've been through has equipped you to come through it stronger than you've ever been and to help somebody else to face their difficulties, their darkness, their brokenness, and see that they've actually been working out of the gym of life and they're stronger than they ever thought they could be. If you got a story like mine that you want to share, I'm telling mine in long form, but I'm lining up some guests in the next few weeks to come on and tell their stories. If you want to tell your story, let me know. Email me, drop it in the comments, say you want to talk, tell me how to get in touch with you. I'd be happy to help you, build you up. And maybe we talk and you decide that you're not sure if you want to come on the platform, you just need someone to talk to. But if you do, I'd love to lend it to you and, help you to tell somebody that you can tell somebody that just like you, they can make it too. So uh, that's it. If anyone's in need, if you're needed some support, some love, I'm here for you. And until the next episode of Broken for this, again, sorry about the audio up top. I don't know what's going on with my mic. This thing is wonderful, but technology didn't want to act right. But we found a way. So last, and I always say it, keep me in your prayers. This is hard work, and but I'm committed to seeing this thing all the way through because I love you, and there's nothing you can do about it. Even if I never met you, I don't even know who's watching this, especially after the broadcast is over. But it's worth it to me that you get the help you need. All right. Love you guys. Have a good rest of your night. Take care, everybody.